welcome to everyone, and welcome Gustav, of course, my co-host, and Matthias Viking.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here with you guys. It's going to be really interesting time, actually.
Okay, so down to the topic of Ubisoft right away, bam, with like no introductions. So we have to start with Ubisoft, but no, the Ubisoft confirmed strategic contraction. So 6 games. When I say something wrong, you can feel free to correct me. 6 games have been cancelled, including the long-delayed Prince of Persia, the Sands of Time. There was the remake of the Sands of Time, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, we all know this entire episode is just about you being upset about that specific game being cancelled.
You don't say. No, I didn't hear anything. So, and 7, no, yes, actually, yes, it is. I was really hoping for that, but yes, and then 7 more being delayed. 2 studios are straight up getting shut down, which are Halifax and Stockholm. And the rest of the organization is being shoved into a new structure, which is 5 creative houses. Oh, this is what I understood, right? And here's where my disappointment stops being a fan sadness, because yes, I'm a fan, as Gustav already said, and becomes management rage. because Prince of Persia should have been an easy credibility win, because it's a legacy IP revival done with care, or should have been that way, and instead it turned into years of awkward silence from Ubisoft, and then like it's this sort of like mercy kill, you know, and that's not, in my opinion, that's not focusing on quality. That's a proof that they couldn't land the basics. Maybe I'm too harsh, but that's the way I see it, because the financial side is even uglier. Ubisoft revised guidance to about 1.5 billion net bookings, and said it expects around a 1 billion operating loss for the fiscal year ending March 2026, so basically tomorrow. And this is driven by delays, cancellations, and a big financial hit tied to the reset.
Mm-hmm.
So the market basically replied, "We don't believe you." So shares fell by roughly a third. I think it's 33 or 34% that was last week. I don't know exactly how is it now, but and they hit the lowest since 2011. So now layer in the Tencent angle, because this time it matters. Tencent completed a 1.16 billion investment recently, taking roughly 26% economic stake in Ubisoft. Ubisoft, the new flagship focused entities, right? The Vantage Studios. That was built around IPs like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Rainbow Six. So all this officially, Ubisoft is selling this as raise quality, reduce risk, concentrate on fewer, higher impact bets. Sure, but the vibe is not creative renaissance or renaissance. It's portfolio triage.
Yeah, but I think it's worth flagging that this is a company that needs to deliver return on investment, and looking across what they have, they see these big franchises that are current. Prince of Persia is a great franchise that I love as well, but it's not current. A lot of gamers today will not be familiar with it. It'll be a nostalgia play. Same thing with Beyond Good and Evil 2, which I can't even remember how long that's been in production.
But they still have it. That's the weird thing.
Yeah. But
I'm not gonna say it's weird. I'm glad they're still keeping it, but yeah. But
I mean, and they're kind of this strategy to shift towards a kind of platform, a portfolio of platforms instead, where they want to drive live service revenue off of their biggest brands, as opposed to having too many different projects. That also makes it difficult to stay on top of what's going on in all the different projects. Yeah.
When we said we're going to talk about Ubisoft today, and like my first question to you guys would be like, are you surprised?
No.
because this was not a surprise for anyone, and I'm almost seeing similar things gonna happen with other bigger studios. But coming back to what's happening now is that I like to put on my more positive hat in this, and kind of looking at it, that I believe, and what I really want to believe, that it's why they're putting down Prince of Persia is because there's no champion for it. Like all the great franchise, all the great games need to have a really, really good champion for something. And when you need to adjust an organization, or you need to slim an organization, you need to look where is your champions, who can champion a franchise, etc., etc. And maybe, like looking at Prince of Persia, for example, there were no really good champion that could pick it up, continue deliver on what's the expectation, because the expectation is going to be even higher now with all the things that's happening. And yeah, and I think that's the key. For a remake, it's a remake, but you shouldn't just do the remake if there's no long-term plans. Like you need a champion to make it a like long and sustainable franchise, not just one game and then let it die again. So I don't know. Maybe I'm very far off now, but I'm thinking in those lines.
No, but I mean, it could be. I could easily see something. If we continue with Prince of Persia, Sands of Time, I could absolutely see it going down in the way that at some point somebody in the business side of Ubisoft says, "Look, we got this great old franchise. We should reboot it. We should bring that back. We should do something with it." And then they kick off a team to start working on a game. And eventually they've started churning lots and lots of resources, started burning lots and lots of resources on creating this new remastered or remade Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. But after a long time, they finally kind of realized that this game was made based on a business decision to make a game on this interesting franchise. It wasn't based on having somebody who had a passion for the product. There was no, like Matthias was saying, there was no sort of champion for the product. It just kind of ended up being made because it made sense to make it. And maybe they didn't realize it until now when they started looking across, if we're going to try to cut down and we're going to try to focus on fewer projects and really make sure those projects pop, where do we have to remove? Could be that simple. And maybe Beyond Good and Evil still has a massive champion or a bunch of champions.
Can I ask you two guys something? Because you guys are more into publishing than I am. So publishing, development, all that. And for me, what you just said, Gustav, it's a little bit just, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. Not what you said. It doesn't make sense to me that such a big company, organization like Ubisoft, and then it's up to you to explain to me how the fuck that has happened. You go on such an IP, you decide to make a remake, there are going to be expectations, and then like 3 years later, 4 years later, X years later, it turns out that, we don't have a good enough champion. How does it happen? Because I don't know, right? Like there's no planning, there's no leadership.
No, there was planning. So if we assume for the fun of it that is the case, inertia. There was absolutely a plan, and there was a pitch, but it was somebody's job to make that pitch. Somewhere along the line, like if you work in a hierarchy, and your boss tells you to do something, then you go do that thing. So somebody says, "Hey, wouldn't it be a great idea with a Prince of Persia remake?" Yeah, sure, that would be a great idea. Cool, go make a pitch for it. Okay. Yes, sir, I will go make a pitch for it.
And here's a perfect P&L saying, like, if we release it within 4 or 5 years with this budget, we're going to sell 5x, most likely. And then things booms, and the company losing money, and it drags out, and suddenly it's closer to a break-even thing. And the guy who made the pitch first, who was kind of the champion on the business side, he's at another company now. So now when they're having their...
Or he was never a champion. He was just doing his job.
Oh, yeah, maybe. So,
he, she, whatever.
and
the funniest part, sorry.
I'm going to say, as soon as a game, I'm back to this champion thing. As soon as a game loses the champion up in the management, that game's going to be the first one on the cut list. And it's going to rotate.
Why does that? Why?
If you're not showing and talking about the game, you're fighting with everyone else. And like if you're fighting with someone that's super passionate about your project in the management team, etc., mostly they're gonna have an upper hand because they're so passionate about it. But if you have this other project over here that nobody even talks about, they forgot to bring a kind of a presentation of it or bring up an update of it. That one's not going to be as heard as others. We're just humans. All the executives are humans. Of course, they look at images and they look at presentations and data, but it's the passion usually. I still want to believe that. I'm a game developer. I want to believe it's passion that wins in the end.
And that passion can get lost in the hierarchy. Because I mean, you can be so in that situation, the upper level of management can believe that there is a champion, there's lots of passion for making this game. Because why else would there come a pitch? Well, but maybe the pitch is just there because somebody was told to do it. And now you have 40, 50, 100, 200, 500 people working on something. They're just doing their jobs. And nobody is kind of carrying the banner for it. They're just doing what they're told. They're doing their jobs. But management believes they're doing it because they're burning for it. They believe in it. They desperately want to make this game. But if there's not enough communication and not enough open and honest communication, that you can believe that for a long time before you eventually, when you start digging into it and trying to figure out, how is this project really doing? Like, what do we think? How are people feeling about it? And then suddenly you realize that, holy shit, nobody actually believes in this.
Yeah, but this
again, we don't know if this is what happened with Prince of Persia specifically, but it's an example of the kind of thing that absolutely happens.
What I can understand what you guys are trying to explain to this idiot right here is that we're still talking about Prince of Persia. We're not talking about, like, I don't know. I don't want to say any other title, but it's not just like a random game or a good game. It's an iconic game. How is that? Then you need the champion, and like higher management, doesn't, hey, what about Prince of Persia? We should definitely put our best people on it because people are waiting for it. We're gonna make like lots of money because people are gonna buy.
People working on it were probably super talented, great people.
Yeah.
But maybe they love Assassin's Creed or Far Cry or Beyond Good and Evil or one of the many other great games that have come out of Ubisoft at different points in time. Maybe they like Prince of Persia, but it's not their number one.
Okay. It's just like down to that. Okay.
Yeah. And I can also kind of imagine these executive meetings where they are like looking at the business cases game by game by game by game. And eventually there's some other games that when they look at those games, like, oh, this is a 10 to 15 years franchise. It's going to make us profit for the coming 15 years. Here's Prince of Persia remake. It's going to be one game, releasing it, and then what? So when you're looking long-term business plan-wise, like, oh, it's falling down to like, and eventually unfortunately, there were like a cut, like this, below this is where we're cutting all the projects, and it was one of them.
It basically comes down to we can spend $10 million a year on this game that'll be a one-time revenue source if it does well. Or we can take those $10 million a year and put it into a bigger franchise with a live service model that will generate revenue for the next 20 years. If you can pick one to put that $10 million a year into, as a business, especially one on the stock exchange and with investors who want ROI, the choice that you have to make there is obvious.
Yes, it's still on the Ubisoft thing, but it's shifting more on the business side of like, you kind of convinced me, I have to say. Good job. And it's a little bit sad. I mean, you convinced me, but it's a little bit sad. There should be some, I don't know, I don't have the magic solution, but there should be something else in place where, there shouldn't be this big gap between like the champion and higher management. There should be something more of a common. I don't see such a problem in smaller companies, for example, and tell me if I'm right or wrong. So I don't see that happening as much. When there is like one or two games, it's easier to the whole company pushes for those two. But when you start having 4 or 5 IPs and side things, side questions, then it starts getting diluted. The attention that everyone has is diluted, and therefore, like, oh, what about that one, right? Matthias was saying before, oh, what about that other game? Oh yeah, I almost forgot, right? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's in part how many different games are IPs, and in part just how large the organization is in terms of number of people. There's a limit around between 50 and 100 where you start needing middle management in the company for it to run effectively, and that's the point where you'll really start losing communication, because keeping that running is incredibly difficult.
Yeah. And when the projects start competing for the same resources, that's also like at that shift.
Oh.
That shift when like, so there's one publishing team, I'm simplify it, but 2 games, and we both want to release in January. Like, who's going to release in January? And eventually you'll see blowing that even bigger and bigger. It's going to come down to like, oh, we only have these kind of resources. Which should we prioritize?
We can ask that platform for support on one of our titles. They won't give support on both. Which one
really?
do you pick?
Steam takeover in last week of January. Which game should it be?
Or the console platforms, or it can come down to simpler things. There are constant contracts running around in a sort of, especially a big game being made. So it can come down to like lots and lots of different things, but at the end of the day, like sometimes multiple projects will be competing on the same resources, and there's a prioritization that's made. Very few companies have so many people in all the different sort of crafts that there's time for everything. Something's got to win and something's got to lose in terms of priority.
So what the heck is it happening? Also, the subdivision in how did we call it? Like in this like 5 different areas. Studios are more focused on different things. There are many ways to see it. One is Ubisoft is preparing to sell as a whole. Just today, I was actually delivering my how to my free training to someone here in Poland, and this person told me, I think they're Tencent will come in and just buy everything else, because like the value now is so low that probably for Tencent is like a spit in the floor. They could just buy it tomorrow. Then are they trying to organize a company in a way that can be sold in pieces or some pieces? Right? The moment you give this 5 different orientation, then you can say, okay, I give you this department, or I give you that one. Buy those one that are focusing on this genre. I don't know. Please tell me your opinion.
I would guess that there are specific revenue targets that Ubisoft needs to hit, or needs to hit. Tencent is a minority equity holder, so they don't have infinite power. But I would guess that they have revenue targets in mind that they want to see hit, not necessarily sale of equity. My gut feeling is based on where Ubisoft is and the challenges that have been plaguing them for a while now, is that there is a feeling that there needs to be consolidation of focus and start getting back to delivering stable success on the absolute key franchises. And if they manage to deliver on that, if they manage to sort of shrink down, start consistently delivering good products with good monetization on their key franchises, at that point they'll start growing out again, growing broader again.
Matthias?
Yeah, I'm like what Gustav said, more or less. I think they need to. First of all, as you said, I think they have KPI targets that they got from Tencent, and I'm not 100% if I'm correct in this, but I also think there is a setup where currently Tencent can't buy. Like the whole setup is made in a way that Tencent can't buy the rest of Ubisoft within some time. So it's not, they cannot just, the value is dropping and they buy everything. But I only heard that, so I can't really refer to something about it.
I'd be surprised considering how long and hard the family has fought to retain control of the company.
Yeah.
I doubt they would suddenly give that up. Yeah.
So my gut feeling is similar to what you said, Gustav. Like they're going to shrink it to the size where they are becoming more and more profitable. And then they're going to grow it with profit to probably meet the targets of Tencent. And then they're going to be out of it. That's what I believe.
Try to do what we say in Sweden, gör om, gör rätt.
Gör om, gör rätt.
Yeah.
Do it again and do it right.
Boy, you wanted to add something? Or?
Yeah, I've had a question for you guys regarding this.
Ooh.
Do you think this was part of the plan? Or do you think this is like an emergency plan happening the last kind of 2 months?
It feels like they grew too much and now there's like, and do and this, and let's sell this, and let's divide. It just, there is too much happening within 12 months. There's too much happening. That's not in general what happens when you have a plan. you do things like that a little bit earlier, softer, milder, better for people. If you care about people, if you don't care about people, I don't know. No, Gustav? No.
I don't know. I think it might be a bit of a mix. I would like to think that some of these decisions took a long time to finalize and required people to look into the status of projects, for example, and analyze whether they thought that it was worth continuing the project or better to shut it down. So I don't think it's a complete
emergency plan.
No, not a complete emergency last minute plan. It's an emergency plan. It might still be, but not a last minute one. I definitely think that there are a lot of people within the leadership who feel that this is necessary in order to save the company in the long term.
But I'm thinking if it is a plan, like they planned it at least a little bit, and as you said, you're hoping it's been in the cooking for some time. Like 1 week, more or less, is a lot of money for Ubisoft. So cutting 6 projects and 2 studios, like that's a lot of money to wait 1 extra week or 1 extra month. But at least I hope they wait, like potentially they knew before Christmas, but they didn't want to like ruin Christmas for everyone, so they waited until January. But I don't know really.
But then you cut seven.
I think one of the challenges that you have when you're a publicly traded company is they can't tell you what they're going to do until they do it. So with a publicly traded company, a lot of things will look like it's a sudden thing, but that's because they literally cannot say that they're going to do it until they do
true.
it.
Yeah, you're right in that one. That's
But then you do 7 at a time. 6 cancel, 7 delayed, boom. All it just couldn't you plan
7?
it? 6, 7.
Yeah. My daughter's gonna love this.
It worked well. Okay. Before we go, because it's already like 30 minutes, before we go, there's one thing I wanted to ask you. How grim is the situation out there in Sweden currently with work? Because now Ubisoft closing Ubisoft Stockholm. Actually, there are a couple of people that I knew out there that probably they're looking for a job, and considering how many layoffs there have been in the last 6 months, one after another. How's the situation? And since you guys also recently landed like 2 new jobs, I think Matthias, you're now the CEO of Winterkeep Interactive.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right, and you, Gustav, you went to be a publishing person.
At Coffee Stain.
At Coffee Stain, right? So how's the situation out there with work and people looking for work? How dire?
It's tough, at least what I see. We have a lot of jobs being cut in Malmö, which is one of the big cities. I think they even had like a special gathering for about 150 unemployed people in Malmö just before Christmas. And of course in Stockholm it's been tough. They did cut the whole Outsiders this summer. Avalanche been cutting a lot of people. Wells, Starbreeze has been cutting. They do two rounds of layoffs. That's going to be almost 90 or 100 people in total over the last year, and massive now, of course. So luckily we have Embark. They're doing really, really well, of course, and they're picking up some talents. And of course, there's a lot of new smaller studios that are gathering and starting up. So, but it's still tough. I have a lot of friends reaching out and like telling me they're looking for something.
And it's getting, for some of them, it's getting really tough. I have a friend I'm in touch with who he's been trying to find something now for 8 months, I think. Nothing.
And it's skilled people. It's nothing with skills to do anymore. Like some time ago it was skills, but now it has nothing to do with even experience. Skills, experience doesn't matter.
When I hear those numbers, I freeze inside. Like I was without a job. Like remember, like 2 years ago for a month and a half, and I felt horrible when I hear people 6 months. I have a good friend here also that just started a new thing a year and something ago. He stayed 3 months and they decided to let him go. and I've been looking for something for 6 months, and I think like, anyway, the only thing I can say, who anyone is watching this, really, I don't know how much the three of us can do. If you feel like reaching out, at least in me, you always find someone who's gonna listen and try to see if I know someone. Having working for a service provider, I know a lot of people on different companies. If there is someone that you see on LinkedIn that I'm connected to, and you want to try, please ping me. Don't hesitate. Just do it, and I see what I can do. If I can put you in contact with the right person or with someone at the company of your dreams, please do it. That's all I can say. And
yeah, and I'll throw in a bit of optimism. Matthias mentioned, I can't remember if we had hit record by then, but there was a conference up in Umeå, Matthias's hometown, just last week, and I'll say that I think that I'm pretty sure that was the most optimistic games conference I've been at in the past 4 or 5 years. I mean, since the hubris days of COVID ended. There was a mix of fantastic new teams or teams with new games, as well as a lot of both Swedish and international scouts looking for games and talent, and more money than I've seen in a long time looking to invest.
That's good news.
Not necessarily huge amounts per ticket, per investment, but a lot of interest. And I mean, adding them all up, there's, the people there could have funded 100 games easy, and we're absolutely looking to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gustav, that even though we speak about a lot of people losing their jobs lately, we also see these smaller studios rising up, and they're finding publishers, they find fundings in new ways of project funding and even like direct family and friends, which make the studio able to hire few talents. So I think we're going to see a future of smaller teams, but more teams. That's probably what we'll see.
In the future, we're going to ask you to come back.
Yeah,
So
it's really fun.
Be ready. Gustav, like always, thank you very much. You're always amazing.